Hello everybody, Falsi Insomnia here with another build video. Today I have an updated version of my Warden Suppressor build. It has heavy critical damage while being moderately tanky. It can be used for duels, BGs, open world, and 1vxing. So with this build in particular, I wanted to mainly focus on how can I take what we have right now in this current patch and try to break it. So I think that's what I've done with this build. So let's get into it. Let's look at our stat sheet. So on our stat sheet, while buffed without our sets active, we have 18k magicka, 28k health, and 24k stamina. Then we have close to 1800 magicka recovery, 1600 stamina recovery, and having 4263 weapon spell damage and 27% critical chance, and close to 5k penetration. And then all three of these stats will go higher when our sets are active, and then we have almost 2k critical resistance without our set being active, 26k spell resistance, and 25k physical resistance while on our back bar. So all around mostly okay stats, but a lot of this comes in once our sets actually become active. And then for our attribute points, we have 11 points into health and 53 into stamina. You can put more points into health if you want, but I wouldn't remove any points from our health pool, since you want to stay in the range of 28k health to 32k health is the range you want to be at for PvP. And then for our Mundus, we have the Shadow, since we're really investing into critical damage here. This is a must. And then we are a stage 1 Vampire. Now, I wouldn't go stage 3 because the cost increase is too much in my opinion, and then the flame damage we would take would also be too high. The Undeath passive may seem a little tempting for that damage mitigation, but it's definitely not worth the sustain hit that we get. And then for our food, we have Jewels of Misrule. We use it to maintain our magicka and stamina recovery. I've tried using this with Bewitched Sugar Skulls. It's possible, but especially if you're outnumbered, you just get tapped out of resources too fast. Then for our race, I play Khajiit currently, but while making this build, I played as Imperial, and then I changed to a Khajiit. I found that Khajiit was definitely better, and our sustain really didn't take too much of a hit, because Imperial gives you 6% reduction for all resources. But yeah, I would just say any damage race is good, but Khajiit would definitely be the best because Khajiit does give you 12% critical damage and critical healing, while giving you a little bit of all resources in terms of max stats and recovery. But the critical damage is the main thing that we're after here. Other good choices though are like Dark Elf and Orc for the weapon spell damage bonuses. Next, we can cover our sets. First, we have two axes of mechanical acuity for crit damage. Both are sharpened with weapon spell damage enchantments. Mechanical acuity gives us a line of mag, a line of stam, and a line of weapon spell damage. Then, when you deal non-critical damage, you gain a stack of mechanical acuity for 4 seconds, granting you 20% critical strike chance per stack up to once every 1 second and stacking up to 5 times upon reaching max stacks or after the effect ends. This effect cannot occur again for 25 seconds. So this set is really strong since we can nearly hit all of our attacks at the same time and have them all be critical hits, but the 25-second downtime is the main drawback of it. Also, once you proc the set, you can easily be stunned or take immediate pressure, and you lose that window of opportunity to use your combo. So if that's a problem for you, you can easily just swap to Order's Wrath, because both sets are craftable, so very easy to get a hold of. And with Order's Wrath, you get pure crit chance with the 2, 3, 4 pieces, and then even the 5th piece, and then you get an extra 8% critical damage and critical healing, so even your damage can be pushed further. But the issue is you won't have that window of having that near 100% crit chance to do your whole combo. So I've swapped between both. It's a pro and con thing here. But next we have a defending ice staff of Rallying Cry, 2 lines of critical chance and max mag, and you gain 1631 critical resistance and 296 weapon spell damage when you critical heal once every 15 seconds. The amount lowers depending on how many teammates you have in the radius of it. Now this is a very common set. Everyone who watches this video, probably 90% of people know what this set is. You know, it's nothing new. It's the strongest back bar defensive set in the whole game. That's why we're using it right here. Then, for our helmet, we have a medium tri-stack Glyph of Ballarg with Impen. It gives a line of weapon spell damage, and whenever we use our ultimate, we gain weapon spell damage based off how much ultimate we used, and 23 physical spell penetration per ultimate point. Our build has high critical damage, so this makes up for our lower weapon spell damage and penetration that we have. Next, we have a heavy chest piece of trainee with a tri-stack glyph on it and reinforced. We have a free armor slot here, so we might as well use it to get a little bit of extra health. Then we have a medium Ballark shoulder piece with a health glyph and impent to try to keep us up in that 28k health range. Next we have a light sash of Rallying Cry with a stamina glyph on it and impent. Then we have medium braces of mechanical acuity with a max stamina impent on it. Then we have heavy greaves of mechanical acuity with a tri-stack glyph and reinforced. Then we have medium boots of mechanical acuity with stamina and impent on it. So we have 4 medium, 2 heavy, 1 light pieces on the build. You could run 5 medium and drop 1 heavy for more critical damage and weapon spell damage. In general, I would prioritize medium over light and heavy if you ever do want to play around with the pieces that you have. Just don't prioritize the light, because crit chance doesn't mean too much for us if you are running mechanical acuity. Next, we are going to go over the jewelry. For our jewelry, we have a necklace and ring of Rallying Cry with weapon spell damage enchantment on both and Bloodthirsty. Since we're not stacking weapon spell damage, Bloodthirsty performs better than Infused would. For our mythic, we have the Monomyth Reforged Ring that just came out this patch with a Mag Recovery glyph and Bloodthirsty on it. So this new mythic, I would say, is really strong, and I would say it's better than Sea Serpent's Coil in most forms of PvP except duels, just because in duels you can get away with running full damage, and Sea Serpent's Coil gives the most damage in PvP out of any other mythic. But this one also has offensive and defensive capabilities, and it specifically plays into this build really well. So when it comes to our front bar, whenever you are on your front bar, you gain Major Force, which is 20% crit damage increase, Minor Berserk, which is 5% regular damage increase, and then you also gain the debuff Minor Vulnerability, which makes so you take 5% more damage. Now, it's not that big a deal because there's a high chance you'll probably already have this on you when you play PvP, so it's not something I would worry about. Then when you are on your back bar, you gain Major Protection, which is 10% damage mitigation. Then you also gain Minor Vitality, which gives you 6% healing received, and make sure you know it's healing received, not healing done. Then you also apply Minor Timidity to you. So for every ultimate point here, so when you have one ultimate, you lose 1 ultimate point every 1.5 seconds. So this is a small debuff. I don't even notice this when I play, so I wouldn't worry about this either. And since we're building into high crit damage, the Major Force is huge on this build. There's only a few ways to get it in the game, through like sets like Sax Heal, and then through the ultimate Warhorn. Alright, so the fact that we can get it this way is really strong. The Minor Berserk is always nice to have for more damage, and we get a little more defensive capabilities when we're on our back bar, when we're in intense fights. We can, turtle up whenever we need to. Then, if for whatever reason you do not have access to this, Sea Serpent's Coil would be the second best mythic to go for. And then the third, I would say, would probably be Death Dealers, because at least you can gain more resource utility while increasing your damage a little bit with the max stam resource tree. But besides that, I would definitely get this mythic if you do not have it, and you don't even need to use it on this build. I just think that if you use this, say, like on a heavy crit Nightblade, it would perform better than generally anything else. But besides that, let's go over our skills. On our front bar, we have Deep Fissure from Animal Companions. It's a very well-known skill. It's a delayed burst ability that applies Major Minor Breach, and it will deal burst damage in an AoE after 3 seconds. And then if you wait 6 more seconds, it will apply even more AoE burst damage. And we time this with our mechanical acuity, so we can have a guaranteed crit chance if need be, or we can just run Order's Wrath and still have high crit numbers with it. Next, this is our Flex Spot ability. I run Camouflage Hunter for the Major Savagery and Prophecy, and for the extra 3% weapon spell damage we get from the Slayer passive under Fighter's Guild. But we also gain Minor Berserk through it, which we already have through the Monomyth Reforged Mythic. So you could change it to Growing Swarm to gain extra crit damage from your Advanced Species passive by 5%. And you also gain an AoE dot ability here, and it applies Minor Vulnerability. So a little bit of extra dot damage in an AoE with Minor Vulnerability and crit damage, so it's not bad. But if you're running Mechanical Acuity, you already have that window of guaranteed crit chance in reality. So it's not necessarily needed to run Camouflage Hunter. I run it because I want to have that ability to have high crit chance outside of that Mechanical Acuity window of time to kill people. But if you do run Order's Wrath, you do need to run Camouflage Hunter. There's no debate over that. You need to have higher crit chance then. Next, we have Blighted Blastbones from the Gravelord skill line. This applies Major Minor Defile, but the burst is huge when we pair it with Deep Fissure. Plus, we gain 3,271 penetration while it's active. Also, while we have a Gravelord ability slotted, we gain the Death Knell passive, where we gain 20% critical strike chance if the enemy is under 33% health. In reality, this is just a lot of free damage, and it goes really well with our whole build. Next, we use Fiery Contingency from Scribing. It's another delayed burst ability with some good side effects here we have with it. We use Flame Damage on it, since it will deal more damage to vampires, and it can apply the Burning Status effect. Then we have the Warden Master Script, where we can charm everyone around us, and it brings our whole combo together, since the enemy is forced to walk into our Blast Bones, our Deep Fissure, and our ultimate. And I've gotten a lot of angry messages about this charm alone, not just with the build, but with the charm alone. So it is very strong. And then we have Minor Force for the last script, which lasts 22 seconds, so we have more crit damage is going out by 10%. And then our damage spammable is Blood for Blood. Now, my last build used Arterial Burst, but this patch I think Blood for Blood will be better. And it's easier on our resources since we don't need to worry about the mag, and we have more healing modifiers where we don't have to worry about the damage incoming as much and the health loss that we get from Blood for Blood. If you factor in we have Major Vitality, Minor Vitality, Major Protection, we don't have to worry about that too much. And then we have the 75% damage scaling factor here with it. So you can hit really high numbers even if you're at 70% health, 60% health, because the lower you are, the more damage it does, right? So that's just something to consider there. I've nuked people still being at 70% health. I wasn't even low. And then if we use Firing Contingency with Blood for Blood alone, even if you take out Deep Fissure and Blast Bones, we still do a lot of damage just with that alone, just to give that as a factor there. Next, our ultimate is Glacial Colossus from Gravelord. My old build used Northern Storm, but I think Colossus is more effective here anyway. Now, it's cheaper at 180 ultimate and applies Major Vulnerability for 17 seconds, which increases the damage the enemy takes by 10% while hitting the enemy 3 times, dealing high damage and stuns in case if our charm doesn't go off. And then now you can also run the other morph of it if you want. Now, it's a pro and con issue here. The other morph does increase in damage per hit, but the Major Vulnerability doesn't last as long. Now, I think the longer version with the Major Vulnerability in open world and BGs helps your teammates secure kills more, because some people might be able to roll dodge out of your combo just in time. So if that does happen, that Major Vulnerability still has that kill factor for them. But it's whatever you want to run here. Then, let's cover our back bar skills. On our back bar, we have Restoring Focus from the Restoring Light skill line. This is our Major Resolve skill that increases our resistance while giving us 242 stamina back and heals us for 827 without any healing modifiers and increases by 200%. And keep in mind the stamina return in the heal is every second. Then on top of that, we get Minor Mending, which is an increase in our healing done by 8% and an extra 10% block mitigation from Sacred Ground. And we also get 13% extra healing depending how low we are from the Mending passive. So this skill interacts with 2 different passives on top of the skill itself being overloaded. So just pointing this out, I do believe Restoring Light in itself is the best defensive skill line in the game for PvP, but we can have a debate over that in the comments. But next, we have Bullnetch, which gives us our Major Brutality and Sorcery buff for 25 seconds while returning 4,992 stamina back in that time frame. Now, if you combine the stamina return from this skill and the Templar Restoring Focus skill, you will get roughly 441 stamina back every second. Now, that's a lot to get just from 2 skills in reality for free. Now, with Bullnetch, it cleanses a negative effect off you once every 5 seconds or every time you try to reactivate it, so you can keep spamming Bullnetch even if it's still going. It'll still remove a negative effect off you, and you'll get a little bit of a heal off it too. But if you reactivate it and you have no negative effect on you, you will get an extra 5% damage increase for 5 seconds. Pretty minor. But something to note, I tried to run this build on a max spec. It mostly worked. I made the proper changes. I changed, for example, restoring focus to channel focus, camouflage hunter to inner light, and bull netch to blue netch. But I found in no CP areas, I had a hard time sustaining my stam, especially when it came to blocking and break free. So I thought it'd be better just to run this as a stam build, and I was correct. I had more success in surviving and dealing damage. But anyway, our next skill is Deceptive Predator under Animal Companions. It's our snare removal and provides us major expedition for us, giving 30% extra movement speed. Now, most Wardens run the other morph of this, Bird of Prey, since it gives Minor Berserk, but we already have Minor Berserk through our Mythic. So we run this morph for the Minor Evasion, so we take 10% less damage from AoEs, very good to have. And then something else to keep in mind with Animal Companions abilities, you get 20% extra mag and stamina recovery if you have one slotted from the Flourish passive on Warden by having an Animal ability slotted. So it serves multiple purposes by having this. Next, we have our Healing Soul from Scribing. It gives us a burst heal with a heal over time and applies Major Vitality, which increases our healing received by 12% for 10 seconds. Now, it's another overloaded skill. I still don't think Scribing should have this strong of a burst heal, but it does. But besides that, we have Resolving Vigor, which is a very well-known skill. It's a heal over time that heals you for 5 seconds and applies minor resolve for 20 seconds. Very strong to have. And then our ultimate is Barrier. Now, it doesn't matter what morph of Barrier you run. We're running this for the Magicka 8 passive, where we get 10% extra Magicka recovery, since we'll be using Glacial Colossus all the time on our front bar. So whatever ultimate we run on our back bar is just going to try to buff us passively. So you can run Temporal Guard if you want for minor protection, or just in very bad situations you can run Vamp Lord. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you run here. I just like having the extra Magicka recovery because I like to be on the go and I don't want to pay attention to my resources as much as I need to. But that is a you decision there. But besides that, let's cover our champion points. So under our blue tree, we have Focus Mending, which buffs our heals for Resolving Vigor, Healing Soul, and Restoring Focus. Then we have Fighting Finesse, which buffs our critical damage and healing by 8%, which builds directly into our high crit. So furthermore, it's going to help us in the long run. Then we have Ironclad, which is going to give us 6% damage mitigation from direct damage attacks, which covers the hardest hitting abilities in the game. For example, like Merciless Resolve, the ability that hits harder than any ultimate in the game, and it got buffed for some weird reason, so we got to have a way to defend against it. Lastly, we have Master at Arms, which buffs most of our damaging abilities. And under our red tree, we have Slippery, which is still the strongest red champion point in the whole game. It breaks us free of any stun automatically at no cost of stamina, which you got to keep in mind. The average cost for a break free is normally around 4,500. Might be a little more in some builds, might be a little less, but roughly it's in that range. And on top of that, you don't have to worry about lag or anything messing you up, all right, because it's going to do it automatically and at no cost to your stam. Next, we have Survival Instincts, which makes our block, sprint, and roll dodge cost 25% less, and we have a SAS effect on us, which is going to be frequent. So we have Pain's Refuge for our next one, which gives us 2% damage mitigation for every 2 negative effects that we have, up to 20%. So strong damage mitigation, almost every PvP build is going to have this on them. Lastly, we have Sustained by Suffering, which gives us 150 Magicka, Stamina, and Health Recovery, which buffs our Sustain even more. So all around, this is going to be focusing more on our Sustain with our champion points here. But let's cover our rotation next. So a quick note here about Mechanical Acuity is when it procs, you will start glowing blue. Now, if you use your Restoring Focus, it hides it. So when you're fighting advanced players can identify that you're running Mechanical Acuity, and they will most likely turtle up, they'll overheal, they'll block, they'll basically be prepared for your combo. So use your Restoring Focus to make sure that you hide it, so people can't tell what set you're actually using. Because against advanced players, they are going to be able to know the time window of when you're going to be doing your damage combo, and they can preemptively buff and be ready for it. But your general back bar setup here is going to be Betty Niche, since it lasts 25 seconds. That goes first. Your restoring focus comes next. It lasts 20 seconds. And then your healing soul is a burst heal, but the heal over time and major vitality lasts 10 seconds. And then your resolving vigor, the minor resolve lasts 20 seconds, but the heal over time only lasts 5 seconds. So that will go last. So it should go like this: Bull Netch, restoring focus, healing soul, resolving vigor, bar swap, cancel. So make sure you bar swap cancel. It just means you cast the ability and in the middle of it you bar swap cancel. It saves time. Then you have two different options here. You can either do Blast Bones into Deep Fissure, or you can do Deep Fissure into Bloody Blast Bones. Now you're going to want to try to get the timing down on these. You can just press it right after and it'll be close within, but you can try to at least aim the blast bones. So like for example, if you're a little further away, the blast bones may take a little longer to proc and get over to its target, so you can take that into consideration. But generally, as long as it's in 1 second of each other, you're okay. Then you have Fiery Contingency. You want to use this light attack into Blood for Blood, because they'll hit the exact same time, and that will also help proc your minor force. And then you're going to do Deep Fissure, Bloody Blast Bones, Fiery Contingency, Light Attack into Blood for Blood. That's generally how you want to do it. And then, if you have your combo and your ultimate ready, what you want to do is Deep Fissure, Bloody Blast Bones, Fiery Contingency, ultimate into Blood for Blood. Now, the combo can deviate a little bit. If you're chasing someone, you might only want to use Deep Fissure, or you might only want to use Blast Bones on someone who's running away and change your target to somebody else. But generally, that's how it's going to go. And then lastly, the potions you are running for this build are tri-stats. But if you guys have any other questions, please let me know in the comments below. I'll answer them as per usual. But besides that, you guys have a great day and enjoy the clips.